So the news is today that Jeremy has been prevented from standing as a Labour candidate in Islington. It's the end of an era for the Jeremy Corbyn project then, isn't it?
Completely, yes. And we're standing here outside Westminster Hall where he was declared elected in a landslide in the Labour Party as leader in September 2015. And basically, although he almost got elected in the following general election, it's been downhill since then, and it's quite important to understand why.
So, as an overview, I mean, Keir, Starmer and many other people kind of tried to sabotage Jeremy throughout, but there was a particular moment after the Brexit referendum when there was an attempt to overthrow Jeremy, a coordinated plot, a conspiracy to remove Jeremy Corbyn. What do you think he should have done?
Well, he beat them off on that conspiracy, because it was. What he should have done then was attack them and rip those traitors out of the party. Had he done that, he probably could have won the general election, but he didn't, because he was advised by treacherous people like, various of them, but John McDonnell, for example, who in the end believe in the World Economic Forum. So Jeremy's failure to be decisive then, and then his acquiescence to the pack of lies about anti-Semitism, and then his U-turn on Brexit. I think that was the crucial issue.
Coming back to the anti-Semitism issue, as I remember, it was Jackie Walker, Mark Wordsworth and Ken Livingstone,
yes,
who were kicked out over this, and nobody did anything.
No, nobody did anything. Jeremy stood there doing nothing, sort of hoping it was going to go away, and by just saying sorry for things he'd never done. And that made him look completely stupid and weak. And they just moved in and attacked.
Why do you think he did this? Why didn't he stand up to them on that?
I think he thought it would go away by him being reasonable. Not something that I fully understand, but that's how I think he was acting. You see, he should have defended Ken Livingstone right at the start.
I mean, it's kind of like anti-Semitism became the universal mechanism of attacking anyone.
Oh yeah, completely. It's the A word now. Any MP can say anything or not say anything. If they say anything that the World Economic Forum and their cronies don't like, they're given the A word, anti-Semitism. I mean, Andrew Bridgen was described as anti-vaxxer. Well, he wasn't denigrating the Holocaust or undermining it in any way whatsoever, but it's described as anti-Semitic.
So, when Labour stood in the election in 2017 and then again in 2019, what were the strengths of the movement? What were the weaknesses of the movement?
Well, in 2017, the strength of the movement was that we wanted to change the United Kingdom into a more democratic, give a greater social wage, if you like, spending more on the NHS, and respecting the Brexit decision. People had voted for it, and Jeremy was clear, we carry on, the people have decided. And of course, under Jeremy, the Brexit would have been a sensible affair. Now, his election was sabotaged by Starmer and Co. It's absolutely crystal clear, and he was within a few thousand votes of winning. A few thousand votes in the right place, he would have got a majority in Parliament.
Yeah, when Theresa May was in power.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, after that, the Starmerites or Blairites, etc., were gunning for a U-turn on Brexit. And Jeremy was consistent for a while, saying there's no U-turn, the people have spoken, we stand by the democratic mandate of the British people. However, people like John McDonnell twisted his arm, convinced him that somehow by sitting on the fence he would actually get more support. I said people who sit on the fence get skewered by the fence poles, and it's a bad idea. Anyway, you know what happened. he did a U-turn and called for a second referendum or some utter nonsense, and that was the end, because then people in the north of England especially lost respect, and they voted Tory to support Brexit rather than Jeremy, who they supported originally.
On the so-called green agenda, Jeremy had a programme which had some elements which were to do with the ecology,
yes,
which you might be able to support,
yes,
and other elements that seem to be the same nonsense as the the world leaders everywhere are advocating.
Sure.
What do you think about that?
Well, I said to him at the time of his campaign, well, both campaigns, to be elected and in the general election, that the climate story is a pack of lies and it will get you into trouble. His line, or his campaigners' lines, or both, was, well, we need to get these green people on board. Now, this is popular frontist nonsense, and always leads to defeat. Because once you give in to a part of the enemy programme, they will surround you, and that's what happened. He became reliant on the Guardian reading middle classes. I think to understand now is we're in a very curious position. The Labour left support almost the whole of the programme of the World Economic Forum. They support continuing injections, they support the man-made climate change pack of lies, for example. And those are key, absolutely key to the World Economic Forum. And Starmer, of course, is saying the same things. So why does Starmer want these people evicted from the party? Because actually, in terms of the programme, they're pretty harmless. The only difference is maybe how they relate to Westminster. Because Starmer is crystal clear, he wants to do the WEF bidding. And MPs, a lot of them, think they should have a bit more power in Westminster rather
than
the
left. Theoretical danger that if you had some kind of genuine opposition who were real left-wingers, as they used to imagine the entourage to be, that something like a big street movement could be backed by
they could do,
politicians.
But now you see, this Labour left will never get a street movement.
That's right.
Never. It's gone forever.
That's right.
Because they are supporting the World Economic Forum key policies of the injection programmes and the pack of lies of man-made climate change, which is the backdrop for all their policies.
So when the story of the pandemic began and the first lockdown was introduced, did you speak to Jeremy about it then?
Completely.
What his view should be? What did he say?
Well, he described some things I said as conspiracy theory. And I said, well, look, you know that man-made climate change is a pack of lies, and you know that people are dying because of the and he said, well, yes, but maybe no, or maybe these stories are exaggerated. He didn't really want to talk about it because it was going against the raft of nonsense which the Labour left had adopted, and he didn't want to alienate himself from them. And it began by this popular frontist nonsense of going along with the popular lie of man-made climate change.
In some ways it was kind of farcical, because at the time of the introduction of lockdown in Britain, suddenly the Rishi Sunak at the time, I think it was, the Chancellor and others, threw all the money at the economy that they'd said only a couple of months before was not available, was madness and was a money tree.
That's right.
So what do you make of that?
Well, Jeremy's desire for the money tree to drop money did happen. And it was really ironic because, of course, they were doing everything Jeremy wanted to do, spend, and even more. Now, they probably weren't spending it on what he would want them to do, but they were spending, they were paying lip service to bailing out the NHS. I mean, it all sounded very similar to Jeremy's programme. In some respects it was.
And the lockdowns, when they came, it seems to me that many local Labour councils and council officers and this type of entourage and state bureaucrats, public officials, they suddenly appear to gain power and authority.
I think what the role of the councils now is very interesting. They've gained power, huge amounts of power during the COVID lockdown stuff. They were given power by the government, but now they're simultaneously all over the country, and also some other countries, doing all this zoning stuff. And it's like they are on the ground the implementers of World Economic Forum policy. So in a way, if you look at Parliament, it's kind of irrelevant, because they might as well just have a direct connection with Klaus Schwab and carry out all these things that are happening, which of course is what the New World Tyranny wants. See, there's no democratic control of what the councils do in reality. They'll talk to people, they have their discussions, they have their meetings, but they always just overrule people locally. And we've seen that all over the country now.
So you've been a councillor in Southwark.
Yeah.
Can you describe how that type of operation works? What's the relationship between the power of the councillors and the power of the council officers?
Well, yeah, then as now, and then I think councillors did have a bit more power probably, but if we said things which are out of line with general policy, and then they already had Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, it was called the Goodwood Guide, all sorts of nice things are brought in. If we made statements in the council chamber or required things to be done, if the powers that be didn't like it, the chief executive would stand up, and chief executives of councils are paid more than the Prime Minister, you know that, they're paid huge amounts of money. They stand up and say, Mr Corbyn, if you go ahead with this, you'll be breaking your fiduciary duty, and you can then be expelled from being a councillor or arrested and fined for, huge amounts of money. So they have a way of direct control of what councillors try and do, more so than they do have of MPs, but the MPs are mostly just shouting in the dark because the government and the local authorities bypass what they say anyway in reality. So
there was a discussion a few days ago of a group called the Real Left, people who had opposed the lockdowns, who'd seen through what was going on, and are trying to draw together a project of the left, incorporating all the lessons about the dystopian nightmare that we've been living through. What kind of conclusions can you draw from that, and how do you think Jeremy should relate to that in future?
Well, I think he should support such things, but you see, it's actually completely against his project now, which is linked up with the WEF and the green nonsense, which is the
it's a correspondence of interest, isn't it? I mean, he doesn't personally have any...
Well, that's right. No, that's right. Well, you see, that meeting on Saturday was brimful of people who used to support him and now they don't. They support him emotionally in that they think he's been very unfairly treated, and they believe that people in Islington North should have the right to choose their MP without outside interference. Now, that is absolutely correct. But what Jeremy's actually saying in his policies, people, no, they don't support them anymore because they know that the green thing is a con, they know that the injection programme is and Jeremy's been conned to go along with that. What else came out of that meeting? I would say, well, a desire to carry on a discussion on the way forward and get more actual action. And I made a point that we must have more organised action against every town hall, against the zoning issue, which is more and more getting popular support. And I think that will happen.